We will now continue with our exterior vehicle inspection, starting with front of vehicle. We are checking for our 3 L's: lights, leaks, and leans. We will be inspecting the light lenses or covers for proper color, making sure they're clean, not broken, and not missing. Up top, we have our amber clearance lights. They are clean, not broken, not missing. On the front left and right side of the vehicle, we have high beams and low beams, white in color, clean, not broken, not missing. We have our amber turn signals and 4-way flashers, clean, not broken, not missing. We are looking under the vehicle for leaks, puddles, drips, and we are also checking that the vehicle isn't leaning to one side or the other, indicating that there would be a problem with suspension or tires. We will now open the hood . Maintaining 3 points of contact, audibly yelling the word "clear" before opening the hood. We are now checking our critical fluid levels, starting with our coolant, making sure that it is properly seated between the minimum and maximum fill lines. Also checking that the reservoir is properly mounted, not leaking, and not cracked. We will check the oil, pulling out the dipstick, wiping it clean, putting it back in, pulling it out again, and making sure that it is between the minimum and maximum fill line. We would also inspect, with the vehicle running, the transmission fluid by pulling out the dipstick, wiping it clean, putting it back in, pulling it out again, and making sure that it is between the minimum and maximum fill lines. We will also be inspecting our power steering fluid, making sure that it is between the minimum and maximum fill line, that the reservoir is not cracked, broken, or leaking. We will also inspect for fluid and air leaks, so we are looking for drips or runs, puddles on the ground, and also audible leaks from the air hoses. Making sure that the hoses and wires aren't cracked or frayed, dry rotted, or leaking. We will now inspect the steering system, starting with the steering shaft, making sure that it is not twisted, cracked, and that the U-joints are free of debris. We'll check that all steering hoses and connections are not cracked, worn, or leaking. We're going to inspect the steering system for nuts, bolts, and cotter keys that would be missing. And that the connecting links, arms, and rods from the steering box to the wheel are not loose or worn. Next, we will inspect the tires. The next items must be inspected on each tire, starting with tire inflation. Inspecting for proper inflation using a tire pressure gauge. We would remove the valve stem using the tire pressure gauge to check the tire pressure. we would inspect that they are filled to the proper level using the data plate inside the door, making sure they are 105 psi. We will next check tire condition, inspecting for cuts and damage that expose body plies to the tire in the tread and sidewall. Looking for bumps, bulges in the sidewall, and mismatched diameters in dual tires. Next, we will inspect tread depth. We would use a tread depth gauge on all major grooves of the tire, making sure that our steering tires are no less than 4/32 of an inch, and our drive tires are no less than 2/32 of an inch. Next, we will inspect the rims and wheels. For damaged, cracked, or bent rims, the rims cannot have welding repairs. We'll inspect for rust trails. That may indicate that the rim is loose. On a wedged wheel, we'll inspect the studs and bolt holes to make sure they are not elongated and that there are no missing or loose nuts or bolts. We're making sure that all of the lug nuts are present, that they are not loose, and that there are no signs of rust trails, shiny threads. This can show a sign of looseness. We'll also be inspecting that there are no broken studs. Now we will inspect our suspension, our springs, air brakes, and shocks. Here we can see our leaf springs are properly mounted to the frame. They're not loose or shifted. Our shocks are properly mounted. They are not missing, cracked, or leaking. And our airbags, making sure they are not dry rotted, they are not leaking, and that they are not missing. We also have an airbag on the cab for our air ride suspension. We'll make sure that there are no leaks, that it is not dry rotted, and it is not missing. Next, we'll inspect the brake lines and hoses, making sure that the wires are not frayed, cut, or missing, and that the hoses have no leaks or dry rot. Next, we will inspect for brake contaminants, such as grease, oil, or excessive dirt on the brake lining or pads. Next is the lenses on the side of the vehicle. We will be inspecting that the light lenses or covers on the sides of the vehicle and trailer are the proper color, clean, not broken, not missing, and inspecting that the reflectors on the sides of the vehicle and trailer are the proper color, clean, not broken, and not missing. Starting with a marker light on the side of the hood. Amber in color also functions as a turn signal and four-way flasher. It is clean, not broken, not missing. Next, we have a red reflector inside of the door. It is clean, not broken, not missing. 3 white reflective rectangles on the back of the tractor. Clean, not broken, not missing. An amber running light on the front of the trailer. Clean, not broken, not missing. red reflective tape down the side of the trailer, clean, not broken or missing. Another running light here on the trailer, clean, not broken, not missing. More red and white reflective tape. On the side here, we have a clearance light. It also functions as a turn signal and four-way flasher, amber in color. Clean, not broken, not missing. Continuing down the trailer, inspecting our red and white reflective tape, making sure that it is clean, not broken, and not missing. Here at the rear of the trailer, we have an amber ABS light. It is clean, not broken, not missing. And a red running light, clean, not broken, not missing. Next we have traffic monitoring devices. This will include our side view mirrors. We will make sure that they are properly mounted, clean, not broken, not missing. These are breakaway mirrors, so they do break away to the front and to the rear of the vehicle. We will now inspect the battery and electrical system. First, we will remove the battery box cover. We will inspect that the batteries are secure, that all connections are tight, and they should show no signs of corrosion. We will inspect that the cables and lines are secure and not cracked or worn. And lastly, that the battery box will secure Next is the fuel tank. This truck does not have a DEF tank, but if it did, we would inspect it the same way as I'm about to inspect the fuel tank. We will inspect that the caps are tight, that the tank is properly mounted, that there are no leaks, and that the attached hoses and lines are not worn, broken, missing, or leaking. Next, we will inspect the frame for cracks, broken welds, holes, or other damage to frame members, including the trailer. We will walk the length of the vehicle, checking the longitudinal frame, as well as cross members, the catwalk, there is another cross member under the fifth wheel, and lastly one here at the end of the tractor. We'll inspect the frame on the trailer from the front to the rear. There's a visible part of the frame on the top. We'll inspect that, as well as the frame underneath. We'll also be inspecting the cargo area for cracks, breaks, or holes. Next, we will inspect our air and electric lines. We will inspect that the air and electric connectors on the power unit and the trailer are seated and sealed, free of damage, and locked into place. Inspecting the seals for dry rot and making sure they are not missing, worn, or damaged. Inspecting that the hose and electrical lines are not cut, cracked, chafed, spliced, taped, or worn. We will also make sure they are not tangled, crimped, or pinched, or dragging against vehicle parts or the ground. Next, we will inspect the fifth wheel skid plate, inspecting that the fifth wheel skid plate is securely mounted to the vehicle by the fifth wheel platform. Inspecting for cracks, breaks, or excessive wear. And inspecting for proper lubrication. We will now inspect the kingpin, apron, and gap, inspecting that the kingpin is in place, not bent, damaged, or worn. It is properly seated in the locking jaws. Inspecting that the visible part of the apron is not bent, cracked, or broken. And inspecting that the trailer is lying flat on the fifth wheel skid plate and there is no space between the apron and fifth wheel. Next, we will check our locking and safety devices, looking into the fifth wheel gap and inspecting that the locking jaws or lever are fully secured around the kingpin, and inspecting for play between the kingpin and locking jaws. We will inspect that the release arm is in the engaged position and that the safety latch or lock is in place. We will inspect the sliding fifth wheel locking pins for damage and that the pins are fully engaged. Next, we will inspect our landing gear and clearance, inspecting that the landing gear is fully raised, it has no missing parts, and the crank handle is secure. We'll also be inspecting that the fifth wheel is positioned properly so that the tractor frame will clear the landing gear on turns. We will now go to the rear of the trailer to inspect lenses and reflectors. On the back here, we have on the very outer edge a red braking light. The two inner circle lights, red, they function as turn signals, braking lights, and running lights. They are all not cracked, broken, missing, and they are clean. And in the center, we have a running and braking light, red in color. It is not cracked, broken, or missing. It is also clean. And on the back of the trailer, we also have red and white reflective tape. Clean, not broken, not missing. As we walk back towards the front of the vehicle, we will be making sure that we did not miss any parts on the inspection. And if we did, this would be the perfect time to go over those. When you have completed your check, you'll come back to your starting position with your 3 points of contact. Yell clear and close the hood.